Yo, what's happening, y'all? Let's see here. Just change the cameras, all that stuff. Welcome to this week's What the Heck, where we've got Isaac and Jetlag 7. Um,
Oh, geez, yeah, that must be rough. You just landed, yeah? Or you just got back?
yeah, I got back um, in the last day or two. I just don't.
Mm.
I can hear
Yeah,
myself really faintly, and I
oh,
don't
that's
know.
annoying. Do you have the YouTube stream up?
No.
Weird.
Here, let's be real quiet. I don't
Huh.
know. Whatever, it's fine. Is it?
I can hear myself a little bit because I'm monitoring through, like, the modular, so I've actually got, like, a microphone this time. So you
Oh
get
wow.
high quality Isaac audio. Ooh,
And some slight echo. Yeah,
heck.
that's okay. It's courtesy of Forrest. Hey, Forrestine, enthusiastic electrons.
Yes, hello, 1AJS.
Yeah,
Hiya. Um,
you're good. Yeah, so let's do the intro. Like, who are you? And oh, I didn't even do the question.
oh, God, what's our question this time?
Um,
What is
what's
uh
what's what's a what's the most recent unfinished project that you touched?
okay. Hi, I'm Isaac, local synth wizard, goblin, etc. I make things. I make music sometimes. My latest unfinished project, I guess, would be I have a simple board I just got. This thing's pretty cool. I'm learning the Daisy Seed, but I put it down for a second because I couldn't figure out how to make digital reads work. Um, because I am an awful coder right now. So that's my latest project, I suppose.
I guess mine technically is it's not even the one I've worked on the most recently. It's just one I happened to move earlier today from one table to another. It's the geez, I don't even remember the name of this. It's the Polaxis,
Oh,
the vocal one that you
yeah. What
typed
is it called?
into.
Taco? Is it the taco or is it a
I don't
different
know,
thing?
but it's cool. You can see it's been like spaghettyified into Cosmo, um, but it doesn't fully work. There's like something buggy happening with I think with the gate function and stuff like that. But I can get
Hmm.
noise out of it, so that's
Hey, it's a start.
something. Yeah. Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
let's see. Let's see. Do I have anything
Uh.
old stuff from? I don't know if you added that or
Oh,
not.
I added that actually just because I have another live set coming up, so
Oh
I thought
yeah,
it might be something cool to talk about. I guess.
yeah, that could be
Um.
cool. Um, before we do that, I kind of want to talk about like we hung out in
We
person.
did. We actually met in the meet space. It was
Yeah,
it was crazy that that happened.
yeah.
Um,
Traveled thousands of miles, both of us, to meet in a city that. Uh,
Neither of us are local to,
right.
and it would have been a lot simpler if we had just gone like straight, directly Texas to Colorado.
I was in the
um,
neighborhood, so it worked out pretty good, I thought.
yeah.
Uh,
No, it was loads of fun. Heck is in fact real. Um,
mhm.
I can confirm. But yeah, no, we had a great time. We hung out with Kyle as well. Um,
Yeah,
had some really tasty Indian food.
Kyle's great. Gave us a great recommendation. We had some good food, and then we hit BrewDog afterwards.
Yes.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah, Glasgow is great. Um,
Glasgow's a fun place.
yeah,
Um, And how was you went up to Edinburgh too after that, right?
Yeah, I went to Edinburgh afterwards, but I don't actually know if I know any synth people in Edinburgh. So we just did like the tourist thing. Well, it was sort of a weird tourist thing because the Queen RIP just passed or
Yeah.
whatever. But
So it was
um,
like
yeah, it was interesting. I don't remember a ton after around 2 or 3 o'clock because that's when we started getting into the whiskey. But um,
I still have I have the tiny little thing right here. Gifty. Um, yes, there are no synth people in Edinburgh. Now
I
Kyle's
believe
being
that.
snobby. There is. I've been up. I actually was going to go to the wave. There was like Wavetable was like 2 days ago there, or yesterday was they had another live show there, but it is such a haul to get up there alone with the trains and all that because Wavetable goes to like right to the edge of when they stop running. So you
Yeah.
kind of have to go and then like rush the hell back so you don't miss the last train and get stranded there. Um, but there are a couple people. I mean, Expert Sleepers is the big guy. He kind of organizes the events. So Oss, he's a cool dude. Um,
The train from Glasgow to Edinburgh is A, fantastic, but B, we missed the first one because
mm-hmm.
both of us were reading, and I think we had like 10 minutes to kill. So we're like, we'll read some books. You know, you're
And
reading and you
then
look up, and we both looked up at the same time because I think we heard like Edinburgh, like, and then the doors shut and it moved, and we're like,
yeah,
well, all right.
hey, it's not as bad. Okay, my first time using those trains because I mean, I had never really used public trains ever before because there aren't that many in Texas actually. So um, it was my first kind of time using public transit or train transit really because I can do the subway. The subway's easy, but I didn't realize that if you get a return, so when on the subway, right, when you get a return ticket, they give you one ticket, and then that same ticket is both your,
Yep.
go there
Yeah.
ticket and your return ticket.
Yeah.
On the trains, you get a return ticket. They give you two tickets. One
Yeah.
is for there, one is for back.
Right, because when you
My
leave the train station, it eats the ticket. So
Yeah, I didn't realize that it eats the ticket because it doesn't eat the ticket immediately. It eats the ticket when you get to your destination. So I only grabbed one ticket thinking there was only one, and I ended up having to buy a second ticket because I didn't realize that I needed to grab both of them. I just didn't see that it spit out two. So,
that's
um,
that's 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 expensive. Or
yeah.
can be.
I mean, it could have been worse. It could have been a lot worse, but
Yeah. Yeah. Enthusiastic asked if I went to the Scotch Whiskey Heritage Museum, which I don't know if I did. I actually went to the Scotch Whiskey Experience or something like that. It's
hmm
pretty close to the castle. And I'd been here like 8 years ago or something. I couldn't remember. I'd done like a whiskey tasting, and I just want to do a whiskey tasting. So I just looked up like which one's good and did not look further because I similar to the stores on the Royal Mile. They're all the same, just like repeating every 3 or 4 stores. And
yeah.
so there's like uh, a, there's like a tartan store every three, like
Oh
scarves and
yeah.
shit or whatever. And then there's like a whiskey store every three store, like there's just the same three over and over again. So I didn't really care
hmm
which. um and the one I picked had like a cool name, and I was like, cool, Scotch Whiskey Experience, it's in a good spot, great, we'll go there. I did not know I was getting on a roller coaster in Harry Potter land. It was very different than my expectations. My expectations were to go into like a room and drink some whiskey.
Yeah.
We got into what like can only be described as the crappiest Harry Potter knockoff ride, but
So like
it's
a
extra funny
roller
because
coaster.
Harry Potter's like based on Edinburgh. Like it's that's
Yeah,
where
yeah,
the author who we all don't like got stole her ideas. Um,
yeah, yeah,
so it's like a knockoff of a knockoff. So you get in this whiskey barrel, and both of us are surprised at this point because we were not expecting to sit in like a plastic whiskey barrel and ride through with a ghost slash hologram giving us a tour of how scotch is made. So that was actually kind of a bonus. Not at all what I wanted. but great, cool. We get through that, and we get to the top, and collide with two huge tour groups. I think one from Paris and one from I want to say like Bangkok or something. Um, so it was like 40 people. And they squeeze us in with them into this next room, which is like the widest panorama screen I've ever seen. Like it was both in front of you and then curved to be on your sides, which is really awkward and sort of
Like a
sickening when you get the airplane shots. Like I don't actually get motion sickness that often,
uh-huh.
but this did the trick. And I hadn't even started drinking yet. We're still sans any whiskey at this point, and so there's this big like Disney-esque movie talking about the different regions. This thing came with a scratch and sniff card, so you could actually follow along with the scents.
That is so
Um,
wild. What?
right, but I've got a mask on, right? So scratch and sniff probably not happening, especially considering this very large group. Thankfully, the folks from Paris were mostly masked up, which was the most masks I saw per person in the entire trip. Um, anyway, moving past that, we go to a room where they show us like they give us our first tasting. We got the gold tour, so we got to get taste five total, but we only did the one there, and then they split up and they like sent my partner and I into like over by like a standard sort of pub ish area where they had like all these glasses laid out and poured the scotch in them. And it was a much more personalized experience from then on. But she apologized like for us getting thrown in with these huge groups. So we got some extra scotch out of it. So
Hey,
all
that's
in
good.
all, I would recommend it. It was even with the weird barrel. Like I think all of you are very familiar with what technology can do. Um, this was like a rough.
That
They
is
tried really
really
hard. I think the tour guides were excellent though, so that was good.
that's good. That's good, but really bizarre. I wouldn't think like whiskey would be associated with like a Universal Studios style
It was like
kind
a
of
bad
roller
version of
coaster.
Universal Studios because I
That
actually
is
have been to Harry Potter Land, not because I like Harry Potter, nothing wrong with it,
yeah.
great series, but uh, it was a work event and they host work events in the evening, I guess. Um,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
so that was my experience there, and everything was really cool. And like you get the Harry Potter things where like the paintings all move and talk to you, and it was like that, but with
Yeah.
like crappier screens and worse rides.
Like weird knockoff. Yeah.
But it's like startling because you're in a really old building. Like this building's probably older than like this country.
That is the
So
weirdest thing about being in Scotland, I'll say, is that you will go in buildings that are like these beautiful, like gothic masterpieces, and you'll go inside and it will just be the most regular ass, especially at the university, right? Like
yeah,
you go inside, the university is. I mean, University of Glasgow is what Hogwarts is based on, right? Whatever. If we're talking about Harry Potter, I
yeah.
mean, it's got the spires, it's got all that shit, and then you go inside and it's just like a regular like build. Like there's nothing old inside of it. Though I will say, there are occasionally like okay, so there's a classroom for Sonic Arts, which has all the kind of they got a really big mixing desk and these massive Genelecs that are like they're like 4 or 5 feet tall Genelec speakers, like humongous. But the entire room has just this huge stone archway in the middle of it that is like structural to the building. So you're like in this room that's got all this like music equipment, and then you just see this huge arch just going through the center of it. So I don't know. It's really bizarre the way they kind of retrofit old buildings for modern usage.
Right, with like a
Um,
whiskey barrel ride or something. I'm like, I hope he didn't ruin anything
so
like important to put that in, but
yeah.
also just because we have met in person and I want to give folks a sense of scale, like when you're all virtual all the time, you don't really know how tall someone is. And when I've
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
held up hands this big to represent 4 feet, Isaac's actually about 16 feet tall, or 3 meters.
Yeah, that's
So
about 4 feet for me. That's right about there. Um, I had to get a
um,
special place. No.
yeah. So that was that. And we talked modular more than I had on the entire trip, which thankfully my partner put up with, but it was definitely like zoning out at one point when we were talking about inside baseball of like
Whatever.
manufacturers and
Yeah, whatever. Like, uh, it didn't help that Kyle was there as well, so we had
yeah,
like the three-way, just like no, it was fun. And Signal Sounds is fun to be in always. I need to go back there and steal back my stuff, but it's fun to be inside and just
yeah,
mess with all the synths. Synth stores are awesome.
yeah. That was my first ever synth store. Like I had never been in a dedicated synth store. I've been in like the only other store I've been in with synths are like a random like Japanese shop in Tokyo, and I wasn't in the synths yet, so I didn't know what I was looking
Mm.
at. And like Guitar Center, like
Guitar.
that was the baseline.
Yeah.
And when I say
No.
Japanese shop, I don't mean like a Japanese synth shop. I mean like a pawn shop that happened to have like a Casio or something.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. There's a really cool cafe I saw somewhere in, I don't know if it's in Tokyo, but it's somewhere in Japan that actually has an entire wall in the cafe of Eurorack that you can just mess with while you get your
uh, that's smart. That's
coffee
cool.
or
That'd be
whatever.
fun.
It's like a nerd equivalent of a cat. I would love to go to. um,
There's that Raccoon Cafe in Seoul, and I think maybe a Raccoon Cafe plus a Eurorack Cafe should like
they
like
got the little
raccoons
hands. They'd
patching.
love
Yeah, they
to.
got thumbs.
I want to see raccoon synth music. Um,
Yeah, it's probably better than mine.
oh
Yeah, so
jeez.
that was an experience. Like there's walls of synths in there, and like lots of Eurorack stuff, and I I now want to buy an Ultra Kick, I guess.
It's
But
this, well, it's that's the dangerous part about it is you go in and you start demoing stuff and you're like, fuck, I really need to get this one thing. I mean, I had this experience literally yesterday. I went, a friend of mine, my friend Nicholas and I met up because he's been getting into Eurorack and so he's building all his own stuff. And he had nano rings and we were patching with it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I've got a pluck. It's like it's kind of like a rings." And he was like, "You want to just try the rings?" And I gave it a go, and I think I have to buy a rings now. I've been avoiding even touching them because I knew everyone's like, "This is a great module," and then I try it, and I'm like, "Fuck!" Now I have to buy one. Like
that's
just
that was pretty much my experience. And like I played with a lot of different stuff. Like it
mm,
was a really fun, interesting setup that I could try a handful of things, and like there was enough in there because they keep the case I think fairly with new stuff that I had no idea what most of it was. Like I mean roughly
yeah.
like okay that's an oscillator, okay that's an attenuator, but like
It's
it was pretty cool.
It is also very intimidating when you get to like a big wall of stuff that you have no idea how to use because it takes me like 2 or 3 weeks before I kind of feel like I really get like a module, and unless it's something really simple like beads took me a solid 3 or 4 days just to grasp the very basic functions of it. um, and so it's like when you have an entire wall of stuff you're completely unfamiliar with, it's
Yeah,
kind of hard to know where to start.
right. And I
um,
didn't want to make like a heck patch, like that wasn't really my goal. It was just to like play
mhm.
with some modules and get a feel for like things that aren't mine, like that I
Yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. And it was pretty cool. So um, at Signal Sounds, multiple times I wanted to try a couple of these synths out. Like the I probably should have recorded it, but the PWM, it's like
Malevolent.
malicious or malevolent. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
malevolent
that
was
thing.
one I tried out, and then the Nymphus, the Dreadbox Nymphus,
Mm-hmm.
or Nymphs, no idea, but
Nymphes.
those were both funny since because like Kyle and I like at the time you weren't there yet, but like
Yeah, yeah.
we know like synth signal path, like we know how to make sounds out of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
It took us a minute on both of those to like figure out how to get
Yeah.
sound out of it.
Well, it's just because like UIs are so you don't realize kind of how much variation there is and stuff like with like how UI
Yeah.
works with things like that, and then also just the weird little features things put in. I made the mistake of trying the Udo Super Six. I think the time before I was in
Oh
there,
no. Oh
and
no.
the I stopped Heck. I actually had to stop him from trying it but
it's the
because
most beautiful synth I've
it
ever
is the
seen.
most beautiful thing in the world, and it feels incredible. It's one of those things where it's like you just touch it and it feels incredible. The faders had so much resistance, and the slide, the what are they, rotary switches, which is
And
like
it,
it.
like, it looks like a render. Like when you're
it
standing looking at it, it looks like a render. It's like perfect.
it's
Anyway,
unreal.
I
But
didn't I
anyways,
didn't test it out.
I had tried it out, and it was like it takes a second because it's like, yeah, sure, it's like a normal like synth polysynth or whatever, but polysynths always have the weird things where it's like trying to get to an init patch and like trying to figure out like where your envelopes are going and whatever the weird mod matrix thing they end up doing is. Like I wouldn't even know where to start with like the Arturia, the Polybrood or whatever, where it's got that massive matrix of buttons. It's like that just hurts my brain to look at. Mm.
Yeah, I mean it took a minute, but I did play with the Malevolent. And my verdict on that
Mm.
one is it's a really cool synth, but they need a gnarly filter to keep up with it. Like the rest of it can be gnarly and is fun, but like come on. The filter is like That's like the half, like I would say like 70% of his synth is its filter. Um
It's very important. It's very important.
but and like I was, because I was unimpressed with the demos. Like the demos weren't like that gnarly. Like okay, they'd crank up like
Distortion and
a little bit of
stuff.
PWM modulation, and it's two oscillators, so you get like pretty thick, like heavy, like open filter bass, which makes you go whoa, yeah. But like you can do that with any synth, and then you do the filter,
Yeah.
and it like totally tames the thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Even with the resonance up, it's not anyway. So there's that one, and then I tried the Nymphis because I was doing some synth shopping because my partner's interested in a synth, which is great. uh,
um,
and I was looking for a poly synth, so it's a six voice polyphonic analog synth. I think it's polyphonic. It might be
yeah,
paraphonic. I don't
I think it's
remember.
polyphonic. I think it's fully poly.
Um, and again had to like dial it in to like be able to like
Well, the Nymphace in particular is weird because it's got like this sort of it's got this kind of layer based menu thing where you
yeah,
like every fader does two things and you have to
yep.
like swap between whatever it's doing.
And once you
Uh,
figure that out, it's like pretty straightforward. I guess it took me a few seconds to knock it out and get it like it can be really pleasing or really gnarly. It's a cool synth, so we walked home with that one.
yeah.
But yeah, it takes a minute to get familiar with synth stuff. It's not just
It
modulars.
It does. I mean, Frederick put in the chat. He said it's how he looks, how he feels when he looks at anyone else's rack, which I very much relate to. Anytime I'm patching with a friend or whatever, or they bring stuff over, whatever. Um, I kind of feel bewildered as to what's going on because people have modules you have no idea how to use, or they'll have like really basic stuff, but he'll be like, I don't know if I want to do just like a really basic patch. Or you're like, it's whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel like I need like what worked for me at Signal Sounds was just like being left alone with the rack. Like when someone else is
unsupervised.
there, like a
Yeah.
conversation going, so I'm only half paying attention, and like I can never figure it out. And what I really need is like alone time and a manual.
Yeah, yeah. Forrestine also mentions the way that people patch things, which um,
Yeah.
I think is really actually this is really interesting. I don't know if we talked about this before. I feel like I have, but like if you're ever patching with another person or you're trying to demonstrate modular to another person, you patch in a fundamentally different way than you do when you're alone.
Yeah.
And it's always really interesting to kind of see what happens. Like, okay, so yesterday I was with my friend, right? We've never done any modular stuff together really. And we ended up making this super cool, like really complex sound designy ambient patch where I don't really do that stuff very often, and I don't think he does that stuff terribly often either. But when we're both there, it's just like you want to kind of throw everything at the wall and patch
Yeah.
things in. However, because one person will be like, "Oh, I'm gonna add an LFO here, or I'm gonna add an effect here, or whatever." Um, Collaborative patching is really interesting and it's cool.
Well, yeah, I agree. And I did a few of those over the last week. But I just want to real quick. Frederick said you went over to Carnalex's place and wanted to say, "Go do something else for 30 minutes," and I totally feel that. And I don't
I just
think
want to do like,
Kyle left me alone on purpose. I think he had to handle a
mm,
customer or something, and disappeared for like 30 minutes, and that was enough time for me to like have some fun and like do the thing, get familiar. But yeah, I actually was in Ramsgate at the Museum of Everything Else and did a collab with Schmooster, who is
yes.
also a real person, maybe a robot, still not clear. But we did a collab and we did it. What was actually pretty cool about it was neither of us were using a system that was ours,
Yeah.
right? We're using a stranger's system that neither of us had really messed with at all and making a cool
Mm.
patch, and we got some fun stuff going. It was pretty cool. I also fell in love with braids, so now I actually got to
Yeah, you
get
gotta
in my
actually build your
shooting gear and
braids.
get one. Yeah.
Yeah.
um
No, I think that's we gotta start doing like, I don't know. If they, I wish there was an easier way to just be like, "Hey, you want to swap entire rigs for a day?" You know, because I would love to do that, where it's just like, "Okay, here's all of my stuff. You can figure out how to use it, and then I want to figure out how to use all your stuff. Whatever." Um,
I mean that's something I would be game to do. Like, if you're like
mm,
someone can vouch that you're not a jerk, you're welcome to like come up
yeah,
to my place and like play with stuff and like do a patch and like I don't know, do whatever you want, and I'll just like leave you alone. We'll go do something else.
um,
Um,
I wonder. Hopefully, I don't know. We've got this upcoming the modular centric thing, which where I will meet the famed schmooster. Um, hopefully. And yeah, no, he just mentioned that was the plan for the 30th. I think that would be really cool, just because I know a lot of the people. I mean, you've got, I think, Jason from Instro was going to come, and I've seen his rig, and it's very interesting. It's all Instro modules, obviously, but it's weird to see it only one company thing or whatever. Just everyone constructs their systems in different ways, and I think it's really interesting to see how that happens.
and how they use them, like Schmooster. I don't remember if you have any filters or not, but like you patched for a long time without filters, so you like sort of knew how to patch without filters. So we're like patching, and it was like really weird to me that you weren't going for the filter. I was like, then we eventually worked it in, but it was like, I don't know, just different workflows, I guess. And like we patched different things first a little bit, like some of the same things. Like we were both like, okay, sound source to exit just to make sure we can
Yeah,
make
get the mixer
noise.
plugged in, all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um, a couple filters now. Yeah, I do a lot of additive stuff too. Sometimes, well, I don't know. It's good also when you see other people because it'll make you think about the way that you kind of patch. Like,
Yeah.
seeing someone not use filters makes you want to be like, oh, maybe I should try an only additive patch. Like, don't use your
Yeah.
filters, or
Yeah.
using something percussive for not, something is not intended to be percussive. Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know.
exactly. Yeah, it was pretty fun. So it was a cool experience all around to like patch with some folks, talk shop, all of that.
Yeah.
Um, use the
Mm-hmm.
mega drone. I only tuned. Sadly, I only tuned 80 oscillators
Oh man.
uh, there because um, the top two rows I couldn't reach.
Yeah.
I needed like a step stool or something. So I was like, 80 is good. That's
Mm.
almost a full column, and that those top two rows are off. Um, and I was also proud to say like that particular column was the most in tune, audibly in
Hey,
tune,
there you go.
because it was, it hadn't had as many tourist hands,
Mm.
you know, ruining it.
What was, I'm curious about this in the museum, what was the distribution of like people who are like very much synth people and like tourists just passing through Ramsgate? Um,
That's a good question. I don't actually know. I got the
just
feeling that
your vibe.
there was a lot of musicy people, not
Mm.
necessarily synthy people. So like people who like when they popped on the organ could like play a
Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
piece, but when they went
Yeah.
over to like one of the synthesizers or something, didn't really have a good grasp of how to make pleasant sounds. Or in some cases, we're totally fine with like pretty rank sounds.
Kind of
like
weird.
there
Yeah.
the owl organ in particular, it's there's not a lot to it. Like you select your owl voice, and the
Select your owl.
volume, and like that's about it, right? But it's kind of a funny thing in that even on the same owl, like if I hit the A key, sometimes the sample is pretty long, and then I change the sample and hit the other another key. It's not monophonic, like the samples keep playing to their completion, which means they can play multiple at the same time. Anyway, you can get in these really saturated, highly distorted, crazy sounds where they crank the volume up because when there's that many people in there, they're all turning the volume up slowly to like edge out above so they can hear what they're doing, right?
Hmm. Yeah, so
Which,
I'd imagine the noise in there is really interesting because it's like kind of
yeah,
is it sort of cacophonous with like everything going on at once.
yeah. I know there were some soft synth folks, and there was like folks that I saw that were definitely like maker people. You just get a certain
Hmm.
vibe. um, but there's just a lot of curious people because it's a really cool place. I suspect a lot of them come in from Sam's channel or hear about it. So they may not necessarily be like synth people, but they're like watching synth people.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I mean, also Sam has like a million subscribers on YouTube or whatever.
yeah,
So, um,
but it was fairly busy. It was cool. It was really cool to get to like try out some of the things I'd seen in videos that like I had some inside baseball knowledge on because I'd seen the videos
mhm.
and like seen some like Patreon stuff, the building of some of these things. So like one of the things, like the only video I've published since then
Mm.
was like me
Oh, the
holding a button down for like 2 minutes.
I saw that. I saw that.
Because like I think everyone going in there would just assume it's broken.
But
Um,
it's you just hold it down and it's got like a 2.5 minute. Is it like a capacitor that's charging or?
I don't remember exactly the component, but it looks like a tube and it says 150 seconds on it.
Oh, nice. That's great.
So I'm not really sure how it works, but it was like it's so dumb. It lights up a bulb, right? Like after 150 seconds or whatever. But like, how many people have had the patience or knew to do?
Just
I
like
don't know.
sit there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I wonder.
that was my favorite video to make. And then there's some other things that like when Sam says the Game Boy Mega Machine is unplayable, you should
Is it?
listen.
Oh.
It is. It's not that it's overly complex. I think it being on the floor leads to people flipping switches they probably shouldn't. But like I had it the day to myself, so when I was playing with that, and so there weren't like people wrecking it. So it was in like optimal conditions.
Mm.
And still, it's more like I don't think there's VCAs in it yet or anything. So like you've got a filter that you can use as a VCA, and then the notes pretty much just stay on. Other than that, and like figuring out some of the internal, like the normal um, signal chain took a second, but it's like not. It can be great. It just needs like a couple more components, I think, and
Yeah.
uh,
I don't know.
yeah.
It always sounds really good in his videos, but that's, I guess, a testament to him just preparing the hell out of it and then things breaking immediately after you record, which
It
I.
does sound good. It wasn't like broken.
But no, I
when
know what you mean. I know what you mean.
when Schmooster and
Unfinished.
I tried, like enough people had, like flip switches. Like when Sam like set it up for me, he was like, "Don't touch this stuff. This stuff's all good." There was
Don't.
nobody to tell them that, so they were like, "Boop boop boop. I'll play with the CPUs of the Game Boys." So like some
Yeah.
would be like frozen, stuff like that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Totally. Well, that sounds. I really wanna take a trip down to the museum now. I have
It's
to
it's fantastic.
make the journey down to Ramsgate, which is quite a thing.
It's non-trivial, so like I didn't realize how non-trivial it is. Like if you fly into London, which I think is the closest airport, you have to take a subway train, and then
Oh,
uh, oh, just sorry, I thought it crashed, but it was still going. Anyway,
no.
I took a subway, the underground to another train, and it was 40 ish pounds to
Oh.
get one way to Ramsgate. So it's somewhat expensive, time consuming, non trivial. And that was just for that one train, one way.
Mm.
Um, so like when I started realizing distances and how long it takes people to get places, um, like for example, Glasgow is a lot closer in my mind than it actually is. So
Yeah. Oh, Glasgow is so far up north. It is
yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah,
Um, the thing about the UK is it's like the geographical distance isn't that bad, but it's because of how windy and like
yeah,
dense it is.
yeah.
Any distance, even if you're taking a car, is kind of amplified, I guess.
Yeah,
So like,
so I had plans to like get some other folks out there and meet up with them, but then when I realized like the distance and cost, I was like, you know what? I'll
mm.
just meet you in Glasgow.
I mean, even London's fucking huge. If you tried to meet up with everyone, every EMS person who is actually in London, you'd have a hard time just because they're spread out, you know. Um,
Yeah. But it was
I
fun.
still, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you have the opportunity, go to Ramsgate. It's a cool little town, good food, good company. But there's two awesome museums because also next door
Is the
to the this museum is not obsolete is something called the Micro Museum, which Schmeister mentioned, which is like a personal collection of computers and video game
yeah,
systems, and the walls of it are aligned with video game systems you can play. So
that's
Schmeister and
awesome.
I played some Pong. I'm better at the fast speed. Schmeister crushed me at the low speed, like it wasn't even close. Um, then we did the tiebreaker in person at a very terrible arcade on the beachfront. They had an actual air hockey table, so that was the
Oh, I
tiebreaker
love that.
for Pong. But the air hockey table is something neither of us had seen before, where it's like curved on the sides, a little bit like a
Whoa.
sort of half pipe ish, but not quite that high, just a little bit of curve. Super weird. Schmooster also crushed me. Yeah,
No, I love air hockey. Mm.
it was it was fun. Um, yeah, the arcade was so bad. It was like if you know those like crappy sort of sketchy phone games that are really
Oh
popular, like the
yeah,
tap ones or the ones that like you need energy and you need to pay money for, like that kind of
yeah.
stuff, or like old flash games were made into full size arcade.
Yeah, no, that's something they're doing now. I mean, like even stuff like Temple Run. Though I will argue, Temple Run is one of those that actually is. I've been
That would
to.
be a
That's
cool
a
arcade game. These were
because
not that good. These were
there
like
was a
broken like squirt guns to shoot
oh,
like zombies, but
not
the
even
aiming
like
doesn't work, and like yeah.
what's the one Time Attack? That's the one with the good
Yeah.
version of that. No, I remember. Yeah, I went to like a bar mitzvah at Dave and Buster's once, and where they give you free. The only situation in which anyone ever goes to Dave and Buster's is when someone else is paying for you. I
Yeah.
feel
A
like,
work event or a meetup. That's
yeah,
it.
exactly. It's like, oh, someone's having a bar mitzvah and I get free credits for like 3 hours. Sure. Um, but they had a Temple Run arcade, but it had a trackball it used instead of like the swipe because of the game swiping or
Yeah.
whatever. And
Yeah.
the trackball works really well, just like you're playing like
Oh,
Centipede or
right, because it's
something.
more yeah,
Yeah, you're just like
literal. That's
vroom,
cool.
vroom. It's just fun to like move a trackball. I don't know.
No,
Really
these
good
were like
input
really
system.
bad, not very responsive games, and we played the
Oh.
best ones we could, but
That makes me wonder if anyone. Sorry, changing the subject slightly. If anyone has made a trackball module yet, because I don't think I've ever seen one.
oh my gosh, you know what we need to do is get an old mouse and like flip it
Yeah,
upside down. There you go.
trackball, but like you know what I mean, like the really big ones where it's like that big and
Hmm.
it freely
Yeah,
rolls.
yeah,
That'd be a good module, in my humble opinion.
yeah. Just like
Mm.
Mega XY. Actually,
Yeah.
that's better than joysticks because you could. you could actually, if they were next to each other, use 8 at a time, like with
Yeah,
your
yeah.
arm.
Joysticks you can't really whatever. With this you could just go vroom,
Yeah,
like down a line of
and
them.
you could keep them. I don't know if you keep them spinning or like how it worked, but yeah,
I think it'd
it'd
be
be pretty
fun if
fun.
you had like if it was like digital, so you could make it so it kind of had like a slew on it where you could spin it and it would like slowly count up, and you'd spin it
Mm.
the other way and it would like slowly go down.
Yeah, someone get on that. Someone in the
Mm.
Cosmo community and
Yeah,
get
if
me
that
a.
seems like a Cosmo thing. It's huge. I don't even know if you could get one that would be shallow enough for most Eurorack cases.
No.
Yeah.
I saw more Eurorack cases. Again,
Oh
something
yeah.
I've never seen, right? Like I've seen like two
You.
cases in my life, and I got it. I was like, oh, these are really shallow. How do you fit modules in here?
Oh yeah, you got to see the. I showed the picnic box. It's
Yeah.
like
Well,
right
I saw
next to
yours.
it.
Yours
Like,
is great, and you could actually make yours deeper if you really wanted to. Like you had
uh,
room to go up, I think, or
oh
something.
yeah. Well, it goes down. It's so it can travel patched.
Yeah.
Actually, is
Yeah.
the reason it's like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
cases are fun. I really want. I actually really like the shallow case. I dream of having a case where you only use like one PCB modules, so it's like really thin, like the make noise and stuff.
Oh yeah,
And
so I've got
I think
some that I haven't finished building yet in Cosmo format that are single PCB. So the PCB is the panel,
oh
and
wow,
all the
that's even
components mount on
thinner.
it. Hmm.
That's those are cool. Those are cool.
But there's design challenges that come with that. Like there's some cleverness going on where it's a mix of surface mount and through hole, and the surface mount is
Oh
typically
yeah.
like in clever spots, like to keep the modules as dense as possible, I guess.
Hmm.
Where like there might be a couple of surface mount resistors or something like under the IC socket, like things like that. So
Jesus Christ, yeah, it's always funky.
yeah, so order of soldering matters on those, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that'd be fun. Thin modules. I don't know. That's like thin module cases. I think are really cool. Just because it's like slim and lighter. I don't know. There's a lot of actually my the picnic box case is pretty tight actually underneath it just because it has a bunch of flying ribbons. I need to get proper bus boards, but the flying ribbon cables make this horrible little rat's nest underneath it because there are a lot more modules crammed in here than the average case. Um,
Yeah, and those like I don't know, ribbons take up space, and you don't want them to be like torqued too much or like,
yeah.
yeah,
It also introduces a lot of noise. I think this is a really noisy box.
yeah. I always like the videos where like someone's setting up like the ultimate guitar pedal board, right? Here's
Yeah.
how you do it if you're a professional, and they're like, you want your power lines to be perpendicular to your sound lines, and if you
Yeah.
can, like avoid running things parallel. I'm like, uh,
You're right. I was on Schneidersladen and I decided to sort by most expensive because I was bored. And I found there was an $800 8 HP module that was like 60 millimeters deep, and it was just a phono preamp for like bringing a record player into your thing with like these super high quality, like the engineering on it was beautiful. It had like a mix of those really beautiful nice capacitors with like really tiny surface mount stuff, and it was just like the jacks and all that were really high quality and stuff. And I was just like, you're gonna plug that into your Eurorack synth and all of it is gonna get noise through your shitty like U Zeus that you're plugging it into or
yep,
whatever,
yep.
the micro Zeus. um
Well, I mean, it is what it is, and like, I think we don't have to worry about that. So like that was like that example used a guitar pedal board, right? And guitar pedal boards, um, I think it really actually is important to do that stuff because a lot of the time you're boosting the gain, whether that's a
mm.
fuzz pedal or distortion or just trying to up the gain a bit. And if there's noise, that also gets
Yeah,
boosted.
because you
So
have to
they're
have like
trying
a
to keep like, yeah,
noise gates and stuff,
yeah,
all that
keep that in
jazz.
check. Oh,
Mm.
guitar pedal wise, there was the Game Changer Audio slash I think Erica Synth's
Oh
collaboration
yeah, the
module. It's the Plasma
plasma drive.
Drive or something. um, in the case that signal sounds, and that was something I was interested in. And it was kind of funny because Kyle was like, but we'll plug it in. Like it's distortion, whatever. And I have the
Kyle's
like
about
guitar
like that
pedal
about
version.
everything.
Yeah, but like it was funny because Kyle like 180'd on it the second we got it going, and like, oh, that's actually pretty good.
I mean, it's also just incredible. It's got that fucking tube in it.
Yeah, I
Anything that has a
wanna.
tube on it is awesome.
I'm just getting mine real quick.
Oh, did you buy one?
Not there. I had this one. This is actually a different collab. It's Game
Mm.
Changer and Jack White. So Jack White's company,
Jack White, like
Third Man
White Stripes.
Records.
Jack White.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh wow.
that Jack White. He's done some nice collabs. So it's a collab with them. And if you were comparing this with the original pedal, there's fewer knobs on the original, and this one I think has two buttons versus one, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eurorack module is actually pretty close to the original. But what I liked about this one is you can set each of these to be momentary instead of on or off. And one is like the effect on it, it's like a bypass, and the
Mm-hmm.
other one is uh, it's not a bypass, but it like hits a secondary set of controls here where it's like almost adding harmonics and stuff, and that gets super weird. So if this is ever made into a Eurorack like thing, it's awesome, and synths do sound really really good through us with those extra harmonics that this one had.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's super cool, and like you can do cool effects with. I really like the momentary stutter stuff. So
Yeah, that stuff's awesome. Or you see some things using the Korg new tube as well. There's a couple modules that use that, which is Korg like re-engineered their own new custom vacuum tube, and they're like tiny and $50 each, but they
yeah,
sound really cool.
they do.
Um,
Like any of the new tube stuff sounds great, and the new bass, which is probably I almost never actually call it by its actual name due to the unfortunate spelling of it, but it sounds great. It's awesome.
yes,
Um,
the
I'd love to
Vulcan
see them do more with
new
that.
bass.
Um, I think Korg just is like I wonder if they're like struggling with chip shortages and stuff. But like some of their stuff was like kind of like they released the drum machine, which I was certain I was going to want to buy.
And then you're looking at it now, and you're like,
Yeah, it,
yeah,
it's good. It's a really good drum machine, but
mhm.
it's not something that I'm gonna like sell a piece of equipment to get. Like I'll keep an
Yeah,
eye on a used one maybe, but
the drum
um,
log. I'm still in my search for a drum machine, and I don't know if the drum log is necessarily the solution I am looking for. Um,
yeah, it's all about flavor too. Like the drum brute impact is right now still my if I'm
yeah,
going to have a standalone drum machine, that is top tier for me because the distortion on it is quite nice. And I'll get back into that in a second, but like it's a nice flavor for what I like to make.
yeah.
So
It's just
that's
about like
part of it.
what sounds you vibe, especially with
Yeah.
analog drum machines.
Yeah.
It's much more up to taste than like because if you're talking about digital ones that aren't
Yeah.
really like synthesis based,
Yeah.
sample drums. It's all
Yeah.
about the workflow and
Yeah.
programming. But then analog ones, it's very, very like, do you like how this sounds?
Yeah.
Very subjective, I guess.
Because you
So
can't change it, right? Like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what they
yeah.
are. And for what it's worth, I thought the analog for on analog drums on the drum
Mm-hmm.
log sound top tier. Great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it was like the sample based stuff that I was like, oh, it's so close. And like, I guess I was hoping to see like, I was hoping it would be like a full log. Like, so like the mini log XD they
Analog
have
X
an
is
engine that
great.
folks can add custom like oscillators, custom effects, things like that. Slightly different. I guess the API is not quite the same for this one. So you
Mm-hmm.
can't just like plop things in from
Though they
that have
mentioned
been.
they had like open source. They were gonna open source like the effects or something for it, or something
Yeah,
like
and
that.
I don't remember. I know the synth engines they said that, but I'm not sure if you
Mm.
can do custom effects because what would be really killer
Oh,
for
the
me is
synth
a
engines. That was
distortion
it.
on that. Yeah, like if they had a
Uh,
nice distortion effect that you could apply per drum, which you can apply the effects per track or and also at the end of the chain. So it's kind of cool.
So you need a mixer with sense for.
Yeah.
uh,
Anyway, it's a really cool machine, but it was
yeah.
anyway.
For me,
Um,
it's like my drum
yeah.
my drum things. I don't know. I keep oscillating also between like, do I want a little standalone groove box or do I want a cool module that does everything I want it to do? Like the Endorphins Queen of Pentacles looks so cool and like so much fun, but also, do I really want a like 45 HP just module just for drums when half the music I make doesn't even have drums in it? Um,
Right. I mean, and that's another to taste thing. I would say if you're
mhm.
gonna do drums, like something like that, whatever HP, what a 45 HP or whatever it is
Yeah,
like nothing
yeah. Compared to
compared.
doing it
It's like
one
math.
module,
You can't really
yeah.
pack much more in that space if you
I
wanted
mean,
to.
it's 30 HP, but it's got like effects and a filter
Yeah.
and like six sounds or whatever,
Yeah.
which is cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
It's pretty cool.
and then I'm like, okay, do I want to do that, or if I'm already doing the samples and I don't care about the analog stuff all that much, should I
Yeah.
just buy like an MC 101 or something, or like the
Right.
new core, the Roland 606 or something like that, you know?
I mean, I
Just
like
like,
standalone stuff. Like, I know some folks are like, do everything in the box, but I think the standalone drum machines in particular are stellar because they actually have a nice workflow. You can make stuff on your own outside of like your synth sequencers and stuff. And
yeah, you
the
know,
ones I've used all have clock sync or MIDI sync, so they sync up pretty well.
what I'll say about staying in the box is I've just moved back to Glasgow after being out of town for
Yeah,
3 months. So I'm in a new place. If you hadn't noticed,
yeah,
I'm planting stuff there. Um, but one thing is that I have been stuck just with my picnic box the whole time. So I have had some modules that I still don't have back, and I've
yeah.
had not access to my KeyStep Pro, which is kind of my main thing. And so I've been doing all my sequencing in the box, which I'm not used to. And I gotta say, I really prefer doing all my sequencing out of the box, just because it's like it's one of those things where it's like certain parts of your rack that you really like and you vibe with, certain parts that you really dislike, and so I have like a random sequencer and a Turing machine. And while they're wonderful and beautiful in their own ways, it's like there's a lot of music I make where I just want to have manual note input, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's nice
And
to have. I guess that's one of the
control.
distinctions that I also appreciate it with an external sequencer is having pretty direct control over what is happening. Whereas a lot of the stuff in the rack that I've used, like voltage block. Voltage block is an excellent module, but when you're like setting up a sequence, you have
You
a
don't.
choice of like sort of like sort of recording it kind of a thing, which
Yeah.
can be hit or miss, or like hitting a button,
And
setting a
then just.
pitch, hitting a button, setting a pitch while you're playing, which isn't like super conducive to live because you're sort of interrupting the flow
Mm-hmm.
of like listening a little bit when you're setting that up. But
Yeah, and like my other big modular sequencers, I have a Rene, and even with Rene, where it's like you could argue it's probably the most kind of playable because you can actually
yeah,
hold down the pads and like just play it out. Even that I feel like isn't quite manual enough. It's like I'm never gonna be like, okay, I want my line to go do 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 do, and then I'm gonna like program that into my sequencer. Like I never would do that. Uh, just because I would with Renee most of the time I've just got it running and I will just like mix up all the knobs real quick and then maybe hold a couple and perform it, but it's
I
not
will
as
say
intensive.
an inbox sequencer that I recently tried that I was very impressed by was at the museum is not obsolete, and it was the Look Mom Now computer, like 8-step sequencer or whatever.
Mm.
And it at a glance, it looks pretty typical to what you'd find in an 8-step sequencer. So like two or three outputs, like two or three rows of knobs to control each one of those, different directions of playability, like that kind of stuff. But the thing that actually ended up being really unexpectedly fun was that each uh, underneath each column of knobs was a touchpad. And what that meant is you could, if there was no clock going into it, set some pitches and play it like a piano or something, right? Like
That
Renee, I
stuff
think,
I
can do that.
love. I
But
love that.
it also just jumps to that step. So if you do have a clock going through it and you can like do some beat repeat stuff like in specific sections and like bounce
Hmm.
back and forth really quick. It was really fun.
That's really the appeal of Renee to me,
Yeah,
as well, because you'll have Renee going, and so sometimes I'll use it where it's like doing something, and I'll just hold down because Renee's a grid. It's a really good shape for your hand,
yeah,
so you can like make kind of like whatever shape you want to do, and it will
yeah.
just play those out. Or even better is it has an active step mode where it will just have all the things and you can toggle them on and off.
Oh
So
yeah.
you can make a shape and then you can drag down and it will invert the shape of what is muted and what is not active. So sometimes I'll do that where it's like, and you make these really cool little things where it's like you're getting variations, but they're intentioned variations to it. So
Yeah.
that kind of thing's nice. But I didn't even have Renee. I was stuck with Turing Machine, which is kind of the least input the least input you can put into it. Though it's got the rocker switch, which I do appreciate, but that's only really good for like I want my sequence higher or I want my sequence a little lower, and I don't really have that much control over what notes it's playing or whatever.
Yeah. I mean I
Uh,
did I when traveling, I like to be able to like compose, I guess is the
yeah.
right word, right? And so I brought the M8, right? Like that was my instrument of choice for this trip because it's small, it has MIDI input and output, audio input and output, handle sample, like, but I brought it with the idea that, if I was at the museum or at Signal Sounds and I wanted to like compose a thing, I could. I didn't, it turns out, because I was too enamored by trying all the like idiosyncratic things everywhere. Like, um,
Yeah, yeah.
but I I don't think I would go like that's my Hapax in a pinch. It's not as good, but like it can
Hmm.
it can
You
hold
gotta
its
do it.
own.
I still really want to try the M8, or at least try the M8 headless when I have a Teensy 4.0 lying around to
Oh,
mess
I
with.
should have just put it in my pack when we were hanging out. I didn't even think about it.
Ah, fuck.
It was
Yeah.
there. It was in the building you were in.
I should have. You shouldn't have told me. You shouldn't have told me. You should have been like, "Oh, I left it at the
uh,
hotel. We couldn't have been anywhere."
but it's also
Um,
like a weird thing that is similar like to what we were saying about Eurorack, where you kind of just need to be left alone with it for like a
I don't
half an
think I could
hour.
learn it in like 20 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. It looks. I mean, trackers already. I've tried software trackers before, and I still can't. I can't even grok those
This
as it
one, like
stands.
within an hour,
Um,
you'll be zooming around. Like it's pretty
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. Um,
The keys and whatever. Anyway,
I want to try the headless one. Or people have been making. I've been seeing. I saw someone had made like a completely DIY one. Like they had done everything from scratch, and still kept it like small and integrated, which I think is really would be fun. Especially if you made it like you changed the format up. Like instead of it looking like a normal Game Boy, you made it look like the wider one, the Advance or something.
yeah,
Like a Game Boy SP that folds.
yeah.
That'd be awesome. Um, Clamshell M8.
Frederick
um,
took the Zoya Euroboro on a trip, but came back loving it. Um,
mhm.
yeah, it's one of those modules that can do like everything in a small form
Yeah, as
factor,
a
which
whole.
is cool. It's I don't think it's ever going to be like fast to set up things, but it's very like I don't know. It's like the M8 where you can compose
Yeah.
on it pretty well, I think, and do some interesting effects and stuff.
Yeah, and I felt that way kind of to a lesser extent with beads because beads. Actually, I have beads patched up real here. I have, where like beads is like its own complete voice.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
beads is its own complete voice in and of itself. So I think I did one or two streams that was like with my tiny, tiny, tiny box where it was just like beads and ornament and crime and like radio music and that's it. Cause um, Beat just does everything, and it's like you know you kind of fall in love with a module like that when you're not using it as part of your whole setup. You just have the one. You're focused. Or like I really love Enthusiastic Electrons
Yeah.
Mimeophon streams
Yeah.
where he's just using Mimeophon because that's fucking mind blowing to me when you
I
can
mean,
make it.
I think that's like we're getting into like I don't know. Frederick was saying like they got used to it pretty quick, and like I had a
Hmm.
similar experience like with my Micro Freak where like
Yeah.
I last winter like I'd like done some sound design patches and I use it in a lot of things using the patches that I made, but I hadn't like done a lot of sound design recently. So I tossed it in my bag when I was doing some traveling, like by itself, nothing else. And like if you have the opportunity to like just pick one thing or just go with it, like you get some really cool stuff out of it and you learn how to just use it. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, no, I love that. Um, being focused, and that all leads back to the whole thing of like
Yeah.
focus. It's like if
Yeah.
you really want to learn how to use your or even if you're feeling kind of uninspired with your modular, you're like, oh, I don't know, I don't really like this or whatever. Sometimes it's a good idea to pare everything down really small and then just be like, I'm just gonna work on one single synth, or I'm just gonna one drum machine, or like three modules, and then you'll sometimes be surprised at how crazy fun it can be when you have to, especially when you have to patch with like limitations, is really
Yeah.
nice. When you have
Yeah.
to be figure out. I mean, that's been my favorite part of this picnic box, is being like, okay, I have this many things going. How can I squeeze one more little VCA out of this with some clever little routing tricks, and or like how do I set up a side chain with like none of the things that you need for a side chain? Kind of.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of similar things and like I'm still exploring my Euro rack. Like my Cosmo setup like directly behind me is like outside of that top row, that stuff isn't in danger of moving or being swapped
Yeah.
out. Um Actually that's not true. There's a spring reverb if I build that might take the rat's place, but we'll see. Um what was it? Anyway, most of it's pretty fixed there, but Eurorack is like still in flux, and I don't really know what I like or not. So like I'm playing. I'm planning to play a couple of shows in October. The EMS birthday special, and
Yes.
maybe one more. But I'm debating just doing Eurorack and maybe just like at least for the EMS one where I can do 20 minutes easy, like
Yeah.
just using everything that's in the box, like no external anything. So like try that out. Stuff like
Mm-hmm,
that, I
mm-hmm.
think just is a great way to learn the system better and get to do some clever problem solving, forced
Or
clever
even,
problem solving.
or even, I. This is my plug for the day of what you should get next is everyone should have a smaller case that you can move things into sometimes. Uh, just a little one, you know. Get a
Yeah,
palette, get a 104 skiff, um, get an
yeah,
IntelliGel 7U. That's pretty big, but um,
yeah. I'm actually starting to think that might be fun just to have a little skiff of like swap things in and out because I
yeah, just
have
one that's yeah,
yeah, not that are
yeah.
like quintessential to a set, but like to make my own little, for lack of a better word, like exploratory soft pop boxes that are just
Ooh.
like, just fun to sit isolated, play with some stuff, do some sound
Yeah.
design.
Sometimes you're like, or like, oh yeah, I want to build like one really nice little voice just with your thing, or
Yeah.
just like a weird delay box. I don't know, whatever. Um, yeah, small cases are nice.
All right. I think we've gone a little over time because it's
Oh
11
dear, we have
11.
oof
But
11.
that's
Oh, it's 11
okay.
11 there.
I got another work trip coming up, so I gotta
Oh
get going
wow.
and packing and laundry and all that stuff. So,
Yes, I'll be here
um,
all week, folks.
yeah,
um,
please, keep the streaming
I
going, y'all.
might stream. I might stream later. Actually, I just ordered last thing. I did just order a Ethernet adapter and an Ethernet cable for the port underneath my desk. Now I have a hard line. My streams will be better quality. Um,
Prove
we don't
it.
have to suffer anymore. It'll be on the 20th. I swear.
That's cool.
Mm,
I hope the upload. Oh, yeah, that'll be great. Like,
mm.
that's always nice. I one day I'll try that
Yeah, yeah.
against my will because like the are like cable inputs like way upstairs, like near the roof, and
Oh, so
like
it's like a.
yeah, I don't really want to run like 100-foot cable or like do some electrical on the wall. Anyway,
Oh. Anyways, do you want to place? I guess I could place out on only beads, but
yeah, let's do a beads solo play
oh
out.
shit.
That sounds
Okay,
way
I don't
better
have a
than what I
camera to
was.
switch to,
Um,
unless I move my entire laptop To be
Yeah,
to hear.
yeah,
That
that
works
sounds
okay.
perfect.
Awesome. I need to
Uh,
patch up my clock for this.
let's like switch
And it's
places, and then I can be
yeah,
in the little
yeah,
corner.
yeah.
Hi.
Back to random sequencers. Let's just really quickly. I gotta do this, and I gotta do this, and then we take a clock signal.
100 foot. Yeah, I have also one of those. I also have some various yellow Ethernet cables that I got because for the live setup I had two rack plumbers to connect the cases.
I like the light better. All right. Uh, yeah, it's been what the heck? It's been real. Cheers.
Beat solo.
Beat solo.